In recent years, Doctor Who's public image has been in an awkward limbo phase, between dwindling ratings, mediocre stories, and certain actors from the show being accused of many things.
Barrowman!
But I'm not here to dwell on negativity. In today's video, I'm going to be looking back at the newest season of the show, and also looking at what worked, what didn't work, and what my overall thoughts were. So my thoughts on the newest season are very positive. Now obviously there is a lot of stuff that has changed since Russell's previous turn as showrunner in 2005 when the show came back, but I would say he's done just as good a job as he did back then and had the balls to do something a little more experimental with the stories and how Doctor Who as a show presents itself. Now I love Doctor Who as much as the next guy, but I don't hate literally every decision that Russell has made. I'll admit there are one or two questionable choices, but overall I think RTD and the crew over at Bad Wolf have done a decent job at bringing the show back and reviving it for a new audience, now that the show is airing to a bigger audience on Disney Plus across the pond. So next I want to talk in depth about our two POV characters this season, Ruby Sunday and of course the newest incarnation of the Doctor. Now, when the new season was in production, I did initially expect the dynamic to be similar to the 9th Doctor and Rose from the revival, which was okay, but then tapered off after David Tennant was introduced and then Rose fell in love with him. And so far, I am glad that doesn't seem to be the case this time around. Now, I've been a fan of Ncuti Gatwa before he was even cast as the Doctor, as I followed his work as Eric in Sex Education, as I'm sure was the case for many new fans of the show. And because Sex Education itself was a show that I was somewhat invested in, and I loved the chemistry that Ncuti had with Asa Butterfield and other members of the cast. Now, Gatwa has done something a lot more different when compared to previous Doctors and his previous roles. Ncuti actually manages to separate himself from the role of Eric, and with this new era, and presumably the guidance of Russell, has been able to craft a new take on the Doctor that personally I really enjoyed. And then we have Millie Gibson, who played the character of Ruby Sunday this season. Now, unlike Ncuti, I wasn't too familiar with a lot of Millie's work prior to Who. The one thing I did know of was her time on the Couples in Coronation Street, but that's about it as far as my knowledge goes on her work. And based on what I heard about her time there, it was very well received. Now, Millie actually has a larger role to play this season, namely due to the presence of the Dr. Light stories, which I'll get into later. But Millie is a brilliant addition to the already impressive talent the show bolsters both on and off camera. Ruby is a character who initially is shrouded in mystery due to her being left on the doorstep of the church, which she was then named after. And whilst the conclusion to Ruby's parentage may be somewhat disappointing, I definitely think there are larger forces at play when it comes to that part of the story. So one thing that we get with this new season in particular is a lack of returning villains from the wider Whoniverse, and I think that's on purpose. With Doctor Who now airing on Disney Plus, I think Russell purposely didn't include any returning classic foes, with the obvious exception, to try and introduce new viewers to the show, and I would say he did a serviceable job, which is something that in my opinion even Chris Chibnall could not accomplish. Now, we get a plethora of unique villains in this series, including the Bogeyman in Space Babies, Maestro, ambulance robots, who are seemingly taking over humanity, an evil Prime Minister, which sounds vaguely familiar, space slugs, shape-shifting bird aliens, and a giant talking dog.
Mr. Me! Who do you think you are? Scooby? Dooby? Doo!
But I do enjoy the different villains we get this season. The Bogeyman was a nice one-off villain for a story more aimed towards a family audience, and Maestro was definitely one of the more unique villains this season, and I love the energy that Jinx Monsoon brought to the role. I am also glad that Maestro didn't turn out to be the Rani in the end, because I think Maestro as a villain worked well as a music-themed foe, and complemented the 60s setting really well. Plus, I have a feeling the Rani may show up at some point down the line, if rumours of Helena Bonham Carter getting cast in the show are in fact true. Anyway, the rest of the villains in the season were for the most part really good as well, but the finale villain I have to go in depth on. So the two-part finale reintroduces Sutekh, but who exactly is this villain? So for those who are not perhaps aware or too familiar with the classic Who, Sutekh made his first appearance in Doctor Who all the way back in the 1970s during the TV serial titled Pyramids of Mars, which sees Sutekh facing off against the Fourth Doctor and his companion at the time, Sarah Jane Smith. Regarding his origins, like in the Egyptian myths on Earth, Sutekh was the son of Jeb, having been bred alongside Osiris, later reincarnated as Horus, to channel the power of Ra, not to be confused with the Staff of Ra from Raiders of the Lost Ark. Sutekh was the husband of Nephthys, who was also his and Horus's sister. In Empire of Death, it's revealed that Sutekh managed to cling onto the TARDIS after his defeat and has been present for every story since his appearance, which throws up a lot of questions which I'll answer another time, because believe me, now is not really the appropriate place to be discussing it. But overall, I think Russell did a good enough job with bringing back a more godlike villain like Sutekh and reinventing him for a new era. And if the show does continue to delve more into fantasy, then I'm looking forward to seeing what other godlike villains turn up later on. Now, when it came to standout episodes this season, there are one or two that I would very much like to choose from and highlight in this instance. The Devil's Chord was a brilliant take on the musical concept. Seeing the Beatles was brilliant as well, even if the BBC weren't allowed to use any of the actual music produced by the Fab Four, and I'm pretty sure I saw a couple of folks from Strictly cameo in that musical number. That was a nice touch. And whilst I enjoyed every episode this season and what each one had to offer, because not only did we get a Regency setting, which I feel we haven't seen done properly since The Girl in the Fireplace, we also got the introduction of what I believe will be a fan favourite character in Jonathan Groff's Rogue, not to be confused with the episode title. Now, this character could have easily been Captain Jack, but for obvious reasons, and John Barrowman's public image, it didn't end up going that way, which I can understand, but I would go as far as to say that Rogue is a better fit for this new era than Jack would have been. Though I may be in the minority, but let me know in the comments what you think. Okay, whilst Rogue is my standout episode from the season, that doesn't mean I didn't enjoy every episode this season in some form or another. So here is how I would rank this season with its episodes. At the highest position I would place Rogue, but at the bottom I would place Dot and Bubble. Then going from Rogue I would say The Devil's Chord, Boom, Empire of Death, The Legend of Ruby Sunday, Space Babies, 73 Yards, and then Dot and Bubble. So that's how I would personally rank the episodes this season, though that is my opinion. If you guys have a different ranking, then please feel free to let me know. But overall, I would say this season was a brilliant return to form for Doctor Who. Ncuti and Millie have great chemistry on screen, the episodes, for better or worse, were quite enjoyable, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Russell T Davies and the crew over at Bad Wolf and the BBC get up to next with the show. And that concludes my thoughts on the newest season of Doctor Who. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, then head on over to the channel, or head on over to the Doctor Who playlist to check out some more. But in the meantime, be sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.